Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemaphilepod.com. A riveting look at a key moment in the history of the climate crisis, the White House effect, from directors Bonni Cohen, Pedro Kos, and Jon Shenk, travels back in time to document how a crucial opportunity to take real action on global warming was not just squandered, but deliberately undermined. It's infuriating, enlightening, and entertaining in a perverse kind of way. The film, again, is called The White House Effect, and we're joined today by the aforementioned Bonni Cohen, Pedro Kos, and Jon Shenk. To all of you, welcome to Cinemophile.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, there is so much here. Unfortunately, I lived through this, and I do remember so much of it in real time. Seeing these people back in through this film, back in my mind, it just it's heartbreaking, but it's also important because moving forward, we can learn a lot from what we see in the film. What was the inspiration? Who of you stepped forward and said, "I think we should do this"? John, Pedro.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Bonni?
just a little backstory, and maybe Pedro or Bonni can take over. Bonni and I are a married couple. We're also filmmaking partners on a lot of the work we do. Pedro has joined us for some of our endeavors over the years, including the earliest project we collaborated on was The Island President, which is a climate change genre film. And we loved working together. And we realized at the time that the three of us really share the passion for telling the story of climate change. We were always trying to figure out new ways to tell the story. So that's kind of the context.
Pedro.
And then, exactly. It was a number of years ago, it was like 5 or 6 years ago by now. We were all working on the documentary short, Lead Me Home, when I think we all separately read Nathaniel Rich's, what was then his New York Times article that soon became the book, the nonfiction book, Losing Earth. And our producers, Josh Penn and Noah Stahl, also had read that. And that got us talking because we never had seen sort of the curtains pulled back and kind of see what led to the politicization of the science of climate change. And we began, really, the three of us began talking about how to tell the story in a way, in a new way that really kind of immersed audiences and really kind of made us experience that instead of being hit over the head, because we also thought that, like, just by turning on a camera or recording an interview in the present, that interview will automatically carry the political connotation that the issue currently has. But what if we just time travel to a time when it wasn't political? And that's sort of was kind of what we were discussing. And we all, to echo what Bonni was saying, we all sort of embrace the idea of, archival verite. There's a number of other films that have done it. Pennebaker, maybe Pennebaker, but
How to Survive a Plague.
How to Survive a Plague.
There you go, David France. Yeah, there you go.
And LA 92, and a number of other films that we've long admired and loved. And we thought there was a real opportunity here if we could find the materials. And then, Bonni, you want to take over?
And boy, did you find it? Yeah.
I love batting cleanup on our trauma of our origin story here. The origin story of the origin story. It seemed to us, as Pedro was referencing Nat Rich's brilliant piece, Losing Earth, there was this, we were suddenly thrust into this moment in American history where the elements seemed to align. The science was in, there was a drought in the country that was sort of making the will of the American people open to thinking about climate. We had politicians that were open to running on behalf of the environment. And there was a window of opportunity that we thought, God, how many people in this country even though we lived through it, how many people remember that those elements all sort of collided and there was this open window? And certainly, young people in this country don't know that history. They've grown up, but anyone in their 20s, 30s now have grown up at a time where the climate crisis, climate change, greenhouse gas, it's all a politicized left or right take on something that should just be straightforward. So we thought, as we gnash our teeth over what's the next thing you can do in the climate, film space, we've done climate heroes. We've looked at, all these different events and the climate, the international climate events that happen, and we followed amazing people. But if we rely on the irrefutable nature of history, maybe we can actually get somewhere. We can enrage the public, looking back at this moment where we really missed. We had the opportunity and we missed. And for those who didn't know about it, there was a chance to do something, and maybe we can get back there. So that felt like a little tiny bit of hope, in a moment where the politicization of this issue just feels relentless and hopeless.
Well, not to be Debbie Downer about all this, but as you're watching the film, at least my reaction watching the film is we're talking about something that happened 35 years ago.
Not that
And
long.
yeah, and if we had done something significant, it would have been easier and we would have been much further along into transitioning
That's right.
into a world where we could sustain life. And so now those things are up for grabs, in my opinion, whether or not a sustainable planet is really on the table at this point. So it's a cold splash of water in the face watching this film, and it will anger people. It did me. And without getting into too much of the specifics here, one other observation very quickly, and that is whoever was advocating for this back then should have kind of understood the impact of the cigarette industry had on gumming up the works, on muddying the water around science. And that should have been something that should have been at the top of everyone's mind about how we're going to have to approach this. Pedro or John?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the conservative think tanks that were working hand in hand with the oil industry, in the late 80s and early 90s, when the denial movement, the denial reaction to the science was first kind of put into play, they famously stole a book right out of the tobacco industry marketing campaign, which is in the face of just, black and white science about tobacco causing cancer and all sorts of other health problems. Let's just hire actors, dress them up like doctors, and put them on TV and tell the public it's fine. And that's essentially what the oil industry did. And the film, in the film, you see the public, which is a major character in the film in the form of Vox Pop and, and that kind of footage that was collected in the 70s and 80s and 90s. You see people get confused about it because they're being lied to, and the truth is kind of being softened for them. And we Americans, we do love our cars, we do love our airplanes and our fossil fuel energy, especially at that time when the alternatives were still kind of in the offing. So yeah, it was. You're absolutely right. We could have been working on this since Carter, really, since the late 70s. We had an opportunity to invest more in solar and alternative energy. And the good news is that two things. One is, at a certain level, we're kind of like artists who are just kind of reflecting history back on the population so that we can see the truth, and not to necessarily put our film in the annals of great art, but that's what art can do, right? Is it can remind you of what the truth is in a profound way. And secondly, we are in a very different place right now in 2025. We have the technology, we have the industry that's pretty much built. It's just a matter of choosing to go the course of what a lot of countries are doing right now, which is to build a new economy based on these technologies. And we hope our film can, while it doesn't address that specifically, it certainly reminds you of the opportunity, the importance of an opportunity.
Yeah, it's just stunning. It's stunning. As you're talking, I'm reflecting back on the first thing, practically speaking, the first thing that Ronald Reagan did was to take the solar panels off the roof of the White House when he defeated Jimmy Carter. One of the first things he did.
There's no archival footage of it, so it didn't actually happen.
We certainly searched for it, but
But it's a little bit like the East Wing of the White House. It didn't happen either. So
Yeah, right,
anyway, sorry.
exactly.
Sorry. That's a little too on the nose here. But yeah, so Pedro, I want to really emphasize just how entertaining this is because we have heroes and villains in here. We have a lot of people that we can point fingers at. And having lived through this, I remember John Sununu like it was yesterday. I remember how powerful he was at that time. So he's one of the people I think that people will train their guns on a little bit when they're watching this film. Anyone else in terms of just well, let's set the scene for the politics of this because actually George Herbert Walker Bush seemed amenable, although he was an
Yeah.
oil man. He was an oil man. He
Mhm.
seemed amenable to this idea. Is that fair, Pedro?
That is more than fair to say. I totally agree with you. And one of the I think that's one of the things definitely that surprised me and I think all of the team was how amenable he was to this and how much he respected EPA Administrator Bill Reilly.
Yeah.
He and we saw that in the correspondence and in the memos and all the papers that we were able to uncover at the Bush Presidential Library. We were actually quite really taken about how like open he was to it and how much he expressed wanting to take action. And it was really for a moment in time in late 1988 and early 89, there were publications that we saw the fossil fuel industry actually kind of fearing that this might affect them and how it was going to affect them. I mean, we actually show some of it, the editorials and letters and things like that in the film. But I think there was this moment in time where he did express wanting to desire, countries around the world expressed the desire to tackle this head on and try to begin to to curb greenhouse gases, so much so that you see Bush visiting an ethanol plant in Iowa and really kind of investing in looking into alternative fuels. All of
Yeah.
those things we saw, there was a real, for a moment in time, there was a concerted effort to look into this and how can we curb greenhouse gases. But
Yeah, William Riley, Bonnie. Let's talk about William Riley because I barely remember him, to be honest with you. But boy, he lit they say he lit the light on this
Yeah.
one.
Bill Reilly's the good guy. If you're looking for the angel and the devil on Bush Sr.'s shoulder, we've got Sununu with his pitchfork, and we've got Bill Reilly with his angel wings. And Bill Reilly was the first actual environmentalist, head of an environmental organization, to be appointed to direct the EPA. So it was a real just shot in the arm to the environmental movement. One of theirs was going to be in charge of this movement now inside and have the ear of the president, which was very unusual. Pedro and John and I went up to Bill Reilly's place. We live in Northern California. He lives up here in Healdsburg. And we went to his home to, rifle through his archive, his personal archive, which he very generously let us do. And we said, Bill, why did you tell us about taking the job? Why did you take the job? Because, did you feel you could do more inside the White House than outside the White House? And he said, I really didn't want to take the job, but I was afraid who would take it if I didn't take it. And at least I would be in that position and be able to make whatever modicum of change was possible. He's had some really interesting epiphanies having seen the film, some of the memos that we've uncovered, where he really got to, in some cases, experience for the first time just how open George Bush was to working on behalf of the climate. Like his uphill battle and his battle against Sununu for the will of the president was very real for him, and he was emboldened to remember and realize remember that George Bush did have in his consciousness an interest in doing the right thing by the environment. But let's face it, at the end of the day, he became somewhat powerless to the forces of industry, capitalism, and the biggest problem was George Bush's need to get reelected when the economy was not in good shape.
Yeah.
And ultimately, those were three strikes against the action on behalf of the environment. So he had an opportunity. He did as well as he could, and in the end, he was not able to move the needle as he had hoped.
Yeah. There's a couple of scenes in the film, and one is one of the first climate conference where you can just see he got his legs taken out from under him.
Mm,
And you can almost see the blood, leaving his face in terms of
yeah.
just how the impact it had. I just, it's a really effective documentary film. I really can't underscore this enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, it does take you back to this place as you were talking about, John, and puts us there. This sort of going way back, you are there with Walter Cronkite kind of approach to telling a story, and your ability to weave together these very different kinds of stories and cross currents, and this is just so well done. My
Thank you.
congratulations to all of you. Yeah, this is a great. I love this film.
Thanks,
It's
Mike.
called The White House Effect. It is out on Halloween. Do I have that right?
Yes.
On Netflix. Well, to all of you, thank you so very much. The film again is called The White House Effect. We've been speaking with Jon Shenk, Bonni Cohen, and Pedro Kos. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.